When an individual generates massive, easily disprovable contradictions while defending them with absolute conviction, they present a distinct behavioral paradox. Standard deception is a utilitarian tool. Most people lie specifically to avoid a negative consequence or to acquire a clear material benefit. Pathological lying, clinically termed Pseudologia Fantastica, operates outside these parameters. The fabrications are extensive, complex, and lack any proportionate payoff. The pathological threshold is defined by belief. The fabricator genuinely accepts their own constructs as they are being told. These grand, evolving stories inevitably fracture, leaving the individual to manage an increasingly tangled web of inconsistencies. These extreme contradictions are not the random errors of a sloppy liar. They are structured artifacts of underlying psychopathology that reveal how a specific brain processes reality. To map this behavior, we can plot it across two metrics: the person's level of conscious awareness and their underlying motivation. Narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, occupies the quadrant defined by high ego motivation and low conscious awareness. In NPD, the individual distorts reality to maintain a rigid narrative where they are the hero, the victim, or entirely infallible. In narcissistic self-esteem dysregulation, an active narrative filter shields a fragile psychological core. When negative objective reality, like a personal failure, approaches, it hits this boundary. The cognitive system rewrites this data point, modifying the facts to protect the individual's self-esteem. This manifests outwardly as aggressive historical revisionism and gaslighting. The individual convinces themselves of the new events to avoid the pain of the truth. For the NPD mind, objective truth is entirely subordinate to ego preservation. Contradictions serve as unconscious armor rather than intentional traps. Borderline personality disorder, or BPD, generates contradictions through a different mechanism entirely. In BPD, intense affective states can override factual recall, a phenomenon known as emotional truthing. Instead of facts generating an emotional response, the intense emotion dictates what the facts must be, altering historical memory to provide retroactive justification for the feeling. A hallmark of BPD is the rapid and intense fluctuation of these emotional states. As these emotions shift, the individual's internal truths shift along with them. This continuous alignment of memory to the present emotional state generates severe, real-time contradictions. These BPD contradictions represent transient emotional states disguised as historical events, a biological attempt to process internal pain. Antisocial personality disorder stands in contrast to the unconscious motivations of NPD and BPD. ASPD involves a high level of conscious awareness. Lies are used as a utilitarian calculus for manipulation, profit, or pleasure. This is marked by the ability to smoothly justify massive contradictions without experiencing internal guilt or cognitive friction. At the extreme far end of the psychological spectrum, a conscious fabrication can slowly mutate into a clinical delusion. While ASPD follows a calculated flowchart for manipulation, a delusion is a fixed false belief contained within an isolated cognitive loop. This delusional pathway is structurally disconnected from external data inputs. The defining trait of a delusion is the absolute inability of the belief to be shaken by overwhelming, undeniable evidence. While the ASPD individual lies for leverage in the real world, the delusional individual is trapped in a reality where the contradiction does not exist. How does the human brain tolerate the psychological stress of holding on to these fragmented realities? This stress is known as cognitive dissonance, the discomfort caused when a person's actions or realities contradict their internal beliefs. The brain warps external reality or invents extreme justifications to stop the cognitive pain and restore internal harmony. This is supported by an automatic survival mechanism, confabulation. Confabulation is a memory disturbance, distinct from an intentional, conscious lie. The brain fills memory gaps with misinterpreted, distorted facts or wholly fabricated information. This process represents the brain's automatic attempt to make sense of a confusing, intolerable reality. The resulting web of inconsistencies is an unconscious patching process, a defense engine maintaining a fragile internal equilibrium to prevent cognitive collapse. Understanding these mechanisms explains why confronting a pathological liar with logical evidence is a systemic tactical error. We can trace this failure through the behavioral flow of a direct confrontation. When objective evidence is introduced, it bypasses logic and triggers the threat response system instead. This forces the defense engine to spin new lies, creating an escalating web of inconsistency. These frameworks are grounded in current clinical literature and diagnostic standards for personality disorders. Pathological lying is a reality processing dysfunction. Navigating it requires moving past the fabricated facts to examine the psychological deficit the lie was built to protect.